We're up to Sif Base. We discussed the last time that if you cannot use a kli that has some kind of a crack in it or something like that, and then Sif Base says something which is very important. Hani mili shenaitel derech piv v'mala. That's if you're using it from, you want to pour out of the top, the above the crack. However, because any place above the place where there is a crack is not called a kli. But if you're taking it out of the hole, then that would be okay. Since from underneath there, it holds water. Now this is a very important concept of that wherever the place where it holds water to, that's where it's called a kli, and you have to wash from there. Okay. Now we'll go to the next halacha. Kli shemachzik revius kishesomchin oisai, when you hold it, you have a kli that doesn't have a good base, and you have to prop it up. I guess that's the word. That's not called a kli because the kli has to hold the revius. It has to be able to contain the revius, not just be a place where a revius of water can be put into it. Hilkoch magufa shachavis yehi chada eno mekabel reviya ela mesumeches ein noitlim imeno v'mechiva lemata ad shemekabel revius kishi yosheves. If you have some kind of a kli that you make a base for it, that it's wide enough that it can hold enough water, then it would be okay. Now, I just would like to share with you something which is like a similar idea to this. Pot covers. You can have a pot cover that can hold the revius, but it's always on a slant. So could you use it or not, right? Your pot cover, it has, you understand what I'm saying? Right. So when you turn it over, it could hold the revius, but it depends which side which way it's going. Okay. I think so. Okay. Chemas v'chfisa. Now this is a fascinating halacha, which I think it defies what we would understand regularly. Chemas v'chfisa. These are kinds of things. Shemiri noides shel or she. If you made with that for them some kind of a place that holds them erect, noitlin mehem. But if you have these other kinds of things, a sak and a kupa that you made it that it could stand, and you put on it pitch so that it's watertight, ein noitlin bahem. Ma'am, you cannot use them. They're not made to be water holders because you improvised and did some kind of a thing. You don't change what kind of a kli it is. This is a kli for dry goods. Okay, different kinds of hats that are made out of pressed fibers. Our hats, right? What is this made out of? Pressed fiber. That's right. Do you know what that means? I don't think that one has to do with the other. That's like saying, is it hotter in the city or the summer? What it's made out of and how it's processed are not related. Pressed fibers is a process. It's not a material.
Okay, what the fibers are is different.
Right. It can be made out of rabbit hair, but it's pressed fibers. That means they take the fibers, just like, I'll just tell you where most people know what this is. You have sibit. You have an aron that's made out of sibit, right? Or millennium, whatever it's called, millennium, which is even it's even worse. I'm not going to get involved in the differences between them. How much is the glue and how much is their wood is the question. We're not going to get involved in that. But the grandfather of those things was wood, right? Yeah. All right. And there he says, "Alidei adchak mutarim, because the ma'aser they are used right now, she'ovdei drochim ragilin lishtos mehem. There are some times which people, when they are traveling, will drink from these kind of utensils, and the Mishnah Berurah gets involved in nowadays they don't do that, so maybe the halacha changes. I'm not going to get involved in that. Okay.
I'm just trying to translate this to the modern day, like a shopping bag. Maybe you can't use an utensil bag.
That's correct. You're right. Right. Okay.
Why is it that you drink from it as qualification?
No, that means it's made the whole liquid.
You can do the point I also drink from it. It doesn't make it kosher.
Here he's talking about it doesn't have. It's one aspect that it has to have a bottom. Yeah. Another aspect that it has to be made to hold liquid. There are two different qualifications. And all right, now we're going to do Sif Hey. Kli shetchilas tikuna kach she'enu yochel lama b'lo smicha. It's originally made that it cannot stand by itself. Ve'ein mishtamshim bo ela yedei smicha choshuv shaper kli. And we're going to use the example I have for this is there are things that go into the menorah, that cannot stand by themselves. Those glasses that goes into the menorah, right? They don't all have. Some of them have a rounded bottom, not a square bottom. So you could never hold anything inside of it, right? But they're made to be placed on that hole of the thing. So, tchilas tikuna kach she'enu yochel lama b'lo smicha ve'ein mishtamshim bo ela yedei smicha. Just like those cups, choshuv shaper kli. That's called the kli. Lefikach kli shu moli nekaven. Now this is a fascinating thing. This is basically like a, but no. Nowadays, there are people who became much more religious than their grandparents, and they try to be Makayim, the Shitas HaGoin, of making Itur by Kiddush. They have, the kais of Kiddush is supposed to have around it other bechers, and that's called Itur kaises. And people have this thing that you make Kiddush afterwards, and you pour the wine into the top of this device.
Not like a fountain.
Yeah, and then it spreads out into all of these different cups. So everybody gets, as my wife would say, equal schmeequal, right? Everybody gets the same amount. And, okay. But, okay, no fighting amongst the kids, whatever. Okay, so, yeah, it's a nice piece. It was made out of silver. Okay, so the fikach. Now, this is a similar kind of idea. If you have such a device and you turn it upside down, you fill it up, and then you put your finger on the hole on the top, it'll keep the water in it, right? In other words, the only way water will come out is if air can come in. So as long as you keep your finger on the hole, I don't know, call it the hole, the straw, whatever you want to call that thing on the top, then the water will, the fikach, that's what he's talking about. Klishu mole nekavim mitachto. Upiv tsar l'mayla, and it has a small opening on the top. And when you keep your finger on the thing on top, the water doesn't come out. When you remove your finger from the straw on the top, hamayim yoitzim mutter lito mimenu. Af al pi she'eno machzik klum. You're allowed to use this for Netilas Yadayim, even though it doesn't hold anything. It has a way that it's used to hold the liquids. So you're allowed to use such a device. If you have you have a urn that has a hole on the bottom that you open and close it, that's 100% okay. That the panel that closes off the urn from outside, that it's there, it's made there to keep the water inside, and that's good enough. So you have to have it that it's made to hold the liquids. Okay.
And it has to be, obviously, that there's some way to stop the liquid from...
So otherwise it can't, otherwise it's not makabel, right? Okay. Okay. Next halacha, lo yiten mayim lechaver b'chafnav she'enoitlin elam min hakli. You can't take, grab some water like this and pour it on your friend's hand, because that's not called a kli. Okay? ורבנו תם מטר בזה, כיוון שתחילת הנטילו ליד האחס הויסה מן הכלי, והוא שהיה יד ראשונה טהרה. Somehow or another, if the first hand was done and it was taher and it came from a kli, so we can, by the associative process, say that the water is coming onto your hands from water from a kli. Okay. Well, it was originally. Must have slipped down. Okay. Okay, now I feel much more picturesque over here. Okay. Okay.
Is a tap a kli?
A tap. This is a fascinating question. We'll discuss a little bit more when we learn about koyach adam. I'll just tell you, a tap is not a kli. A pipe is not a kli. A pipe cannot hold anything.
You can hold the finger on one end of the pipe and it'll open.
That's true. Is that how a pipe works?
When you want to use it for filling gas in a car.
We didn't say that you can't find a use for it. Now, the water, I just want to tell you, the water that comes out of your tap was in a kli. Okay? There's some place where this was, right, it was in a kli, and that could be that's enough. But, that the place can discuss. I'll just tell you, when I came to Eretz Yisrael, the law was, how many years are you here? No, you're a newcomer.
Special.
Parents, how many years are you here? How many years are you here?
32.
Okay, we're getting there. When I came to Eretz Yisrael, every apartment had on the roof a water tank.
Like in New York City.
I don't know, like in Ramallah. To go to New York City.
It had it, every building has a water tank.
Really? Why is that?
Not for fires, so that for water pressure. Because it's very difficult to maintain the pressure. So you can slowly fill it up at the top. Now you've got lots of pressure for all the people in the building.
Okay, if that's fine, that's one way of doing it. I'll just tell you that in this country, nowadays, all the apartment buildings that are built, they have a water reservoir on the bottom. And they have pumps like every 4 floors to pump it up. But they don't have it on the roof for many reasons. They have it on the floor. And this is it's a big problem in many cities. There was a lot of court cases about who has to pay the electricity to bring the water to the apartment. This was, yeah, okay, but we're not going to do social law right now. Okay. Okay. This is one of those things which I call halacha.
What's going on, man? In the beginning, it sounds like it's an issue that you're not using a kli, and then we switched.
No, we said that being that it was poured onto your first hand from a kli, and that first hand was tahor, so it's like it got it from the kli via the associative property. Okay? That's what the halacha is. And then we have over here, the minig is like Rabbeinu Tam to be meko, even though the ikar halacha is not like that. Okay? And that's, we've discussed that idea many times, how the halacha works, and we'll just leave that as it is. I'll just read the Mishnah Berurah, Lamed Hey, V'rashal kosav la'achbar af b'di'eved, gam l'das harama hu davka b'shas atchak av b'nizdam l'mayim litol shenis b'li bracha. Even if you should wash again without a bracha. Okay. Okay.
When was this so common? Like, they didn't used to have cups of it? Like, it sounds like this was like, I did the hand thing, they have a clean. This was the middle, the Rochelle says, no, if you
Yeah, nothing to do with
get
that.
more water, then...
That's one of use for both hands at the same time. That's a Mishnah, that's okay.
Right, but that's not in this halacha.
No, that's not this halacha.
So that actually was putting that question in the Mishnah Berurah.
Okay. Tzarech sheyavo hamayim mikoyach noisen. The water has to come from a person who is giving it. Lefikach tzina shedoyle mayim min hayor v'shefech boy v'nimshach mimeno hamayim lahashkas asada eno yochel liten yadav letoichoi k'dei shekalcha hamayim aleim mipnei she'enem boy mikoyach odom shekvar posak koyach hashefech. By the time you get it, the koyach rishon is long gone. Yeah, you have somehow you're drawing water from the river, the lake, whatever it is, and you pour it into a trough that has some kind of a pipe going out, and the water moves along, and then it drops someplace, and you put your hands under the drop.
Oh, in like a shower.
Yeah, after it comes out, if it pours out, you put your hands there. Now, where did that water come from? Was that koyach gavra? Right, but that was 5 miles ago. Right, so that koyach is already long ago. Whatever it's. However far it could go, mikoyach harishon. That's not koyach. That's not koyach. I don't know what the word enhancement means.
If it wasn't for gravity, I can pour it like this and it wouldn't hit my hand. So the question is, where does gravity fall into it?
Do you think that that's a fair question? What you just asked?
I'm pushing a bound here, but yeah.
Okay, the answer is that normally when I pour something, I'm going to start off with something very simple, practical halacha l'maisa. I want to kosher this table for Pesach. So I take my kumkum chashmali and I pour. And the water eventually covers this whole. Now, how much of it did I kosher? The irui went onto what?
How long does it take it till it's not irui?
Yeah. I just want to ask you a question. Why isn't every cliche irui klirishan?
Once you stop pouring.
No, so it's irui klirishan. It's a kakiluach, right?
Well, once the source is gone, it's not irui anymore.
There's such a thing called irui klirishan shenifsa kakiluach, and according to many rishonim, that's mavashal.
What's the difference?
I don't know how to explain it, so I don't get it, but it's now in a new vessel, disconnected.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm pouring, and I filled up the bottom, and now it's filling up. Is it still irui klirishan? I have a half a liter of stuff. Right. Okay. Okay. No, but that's a question, right? Okay. This is actually the steer about this in the Ramah and Darkei Moshe and in other sources, and I'll just say that as long as it's traveling, it may be that it's cold in irui. When it starts filling up, then the poskim are already. That's really like a klisheni. Okay. Now, when I make hagol on this, it has to be irui klirishain. What gets over there, water, that's just, it's just running over, right? Not only that, that water could even be cold. If I was doing this to shayish, and I poured hot water here it would be cold, right? It's hard to say that that's a kasher with iri klirishan with cold water, right? Okay. So the answer to the question is that however long when you pour water, it makes like a ring. That ring is the iri.
So for example, I have a sloped roof, and I pour at the top, and I wash at the bottom of it. Or a hill. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a straight.
No, that's not straight. That is called koyach.
It's not gathering anywhere.
I didn't say the gathering. One is I just can tell you, when you have a slanted roof, you have a koyach achar ma'urev, because the slant of the roof is affecting how it's going. That's called a koyach. There's always still going to be gravity.
Right, something that makes the gravity go quicker.
How does that make it quicker? Galileo proves it doesn't happen. Okay.
No, but this is totally, it's koyach achar ma'urev. I'll just tell you, I'm going to ask you a question. I take a ball and I throw it against the wall. When it bounces back, is that my koyach?
Different direction than you threw it. So
Did you answer my question? You said a lot of things. You didn't. I asked you a question. Is that my koyach or not? That's a yes or no question. What's the answer?
Directly, yes, but it's not directly.
Okay, that is not called your koyach. That's already called the wall was involved in causing it to go there, so the wall is included in that. Okay, the wall helped to go in where it went, right? Now, actually, the way that the wall helped to do it is it bended the energy that I put into it and reversed it and made it go in someplace else. I didn't say what the wall was using, but the wall is what made it go where it did, and that's why it's not called my koyach. Okay, that's called like a grama. In Shabbos, that would be called a grama. It wouldn't be called your action. Now, when I pour something and then gravity makes it go someplace else, that is not called that I did it.
So when you pour it and it goes through one person's hands to another one's hands, it's redirected it.
Yeah, but that's called one act of pouring. If you put on both of them together, that's a different nakuda. No, that's not. No, because that's in the act of pouring it. It's like, there's no difference if you pour it on two hands this way or two hands this way. Because what about on one hand? Maybe I only pour it on my finger. How about the second finger?
That's why we roll the hand a little.
No, that's not why.
That does it anyway.
Yeah, but that's not why.
In one direction.
It's one pouring, right? That's the pouring. And that's when you have two hands, one under the other, it's also one pouring. That's the answer to the question. Okay. Okay, now, it has to be coming from his koyach, and when it's coming out of the trough 5 meters further down, that's not called from him. You poured water into the tzinor from the yaor, v'shoifech boy, v'nimshachem imenu hamayim lahashkos asada, eno yochel litan yodav l'toichoi, k'dei shekalchu mayim aleihem, mipnei she'enim boy mikoyach ha'adam. Why? Shekvar posak koyach hashoifech. Okay, those are the important words.
It's like a siphon or something.
Well, there are many different, but just the fact that it's not where, it's other koyches are making continue in that way. V'meisim yodam karov l'mokum shvicha. If you put your hands close to where he poured it, afa pi she'enu meisim yodam tachas hashvicha mamish. You didn't put it directly under where the guy was pouring it. Also lo natila. Why? The kol zman she'em kroivim l'mokum hashvicha adayin mikocho hem boyim. That's still called the koyach rishon. Okay? Now this is a very, very good question. How do you cut this? And the Shalom Zalman is busy with this, or Hartzi is busy with this. Many places are busy with this question. And This is Nageya in the water wheel. This is Nageya in many, many places. You can't tevel your hands. Why? Because once you took them out of the Ya'ar and put them into the pipe, they're called shuvim. The halacha is if you have shuvim that you did hamshacha on them on karka, they become ois shuvim, and then it'll be mutter. Afilo doila v'noisen charetz atzmai imadli nokov me'achayrav k'koydes mashkin b'ot sheshavich dech piatzinor mekalech me'achar v'layar u'madlo yadayim tohiris techashibi kilu tiblon bayar. As long as you have that kind of a connection, the nitzuk ze mechaber kli layar v'chashibi hamayim shebetzinor mechubarim lemehayar. It's like they're still in the Yarv. Af agav the nitzuk hazeh lechashuv chibur le'yin tefillah. V'yesh chokim v'arm degam netilas yadayim lechashuv chibur. Okay, so you have a question of how attached does it have to be to the water in the ocean for it to be considered attached, and this is machlekes. It says the Rama, Ve'en li to yad me'osav avodim ha'kavuim ba'koiso v'osa mehem beis kibul barza. If it was a kli and then you attach, yeah, something like that. Okay, now we'll see the Mishnah Berurah over here. This is a fascinating halacha. Okay, uba ze liten yadav the teichatzinor rochu v'machu sheshayfchim. You put your hands into that pipe, assuming that's going to be an atila. It's no good because it's not mikoy chaim boim. The after tils yadayim bekli hu davka. V'kibon shu karv l'makom hashvicha sheshayfech b'li chashuv mikoy hakli gamkein. It's as if it came from the kli also. Upashadum shayfech l'sech tzino bekli psula kigon menukov. After the nice and karv l'makom hashvicha apostle. Because you still need to do netil with a kli. The edom boy mekli v'lo ba'ofen avur the kamei that kli is still called attached to the yar. Okay. If somebody put their hands in the pipe, but the water was poured into the pipe with a kli that has a hole, it doesn't work because the kli is not right. Okay. Im hitul yadav hainu shetachvam b'mayim shekansu b'sechat zinor uba lachshiron mikoich tefillah. As we're going to learn that tefillah works, the tefillah dami hayli dayim kishetoivim b'mayim u'mikvah shehem shuvim. Anything that was taken out of the ya'ar with the kli is shuvim. Ve'ein machshiring mikoich tefillah ela may makshem tefillah saguf. And being that there's not kosher tefillah saguf, it's no good. Okay. The machshir shuvim ba'boyim so bekarka after the emes mabim pliyalze. If you would have shuvim in a swimming pool, okay. Chutz latzinor umamshich the shir hamshacha sheivatel behem shem shuva aydei surhei shosha tvachim machmas latzinor atzmoi lo havi shuvim the ma'isha haya ala shlo haya shem kli. The pipe was never a kli. Kigon shlo nasa boy. Arba sofos, the kabel b'sech was never made to contain water, just to have water pass through it. The ilo hayatzino atzmo kli lo mahani amshacha because it's still sheuvim in the kli. Ve'ein shayach shom tefila klal. Shem shichu hani del'in tefila saguf machmirim b'zeh hayamayim sheuvim av shem shichu, as it says in Yeredeya. Rabbanan dehakel over here that it's enough to just have hamshacha to be matter. The ksheira v'dafka sheyesh bo aboyim. So ve'el yirabah after bad the mekel l'kamot of double pachas. We say halo ikar adin da yedei hamshacha gam ken kulahi v'lo makilan kulei hai. Okay, v'gam tzo sheyamayim mechunasim b'lo yisachalim dahainu sheyistam sof atzinor sheichan tzo amayim. It has to be that the water is stagnant. The teichritz v'tzad alever v'teich achritz shel atzinor. Okay. Now, B'kainis mashka, the other side of the kli has a hole b'kodesh mashak and b'vur b'sif aleph v'kishemoitzi tifach hatis kodesh mashkahu v'yesh roitz lover the kan tzach sheyeh gadol k'tzah sheyeh nira kiluach does choshev mechubur me'ayor. It has to have a bigger hole than that. You have to actually see it connected to the yaor when you're pouring with it. Okay. Mechaber kli liyar b'huad didn't ba b'sfina v'enem agia little yadav b'mehayam. Ve'eno kli shalom rak kli menukov kodesh mashke dolebo min hayam umatlu yadav boy shemei kli mechubar lemehayam aydei shamayim noitzim derech hanekev into the yam, back into the yam. So it's like that you went into the yam. Okay, linyan tefila the nitzuk eno chiber shom klal gam v'gam ba'ofen the mahani shom eruv lechaber hamayim hu shir gadol v'lo yadei nitzuk dak kozeh. V'yesh cholkim v'rashal hiskel l'dei azumi kol mokom b'shas hatchak yesh esmach adas ha'mekilim v'udas reba poiskim v'mtol yadav ha'idei hechsher chiber v'nitzuk v'achach nizdamen lo litol karoi lo yivorach al atila shniya because mikar adin it works. Tol reba poiskim yotzi yadei chavis and atila. Kodim hachalulim amekalchim mayim min hayar. If you have pipes that are, and this you have this in the north all the time. You have in all the wadis you have a place where there's a pipe, where the water doesn't go. They stuff a pipe in and then it comes out, and you want to wash your hands under those pipes. Daf lesayvre b'sivches loy boy kach gavra. Pasal mishum she'en kan kli. The hakonim einam klum she'en bahem beis kibul. Pipe is nothing because it doesn't have a base kibul. A base kibul has to have four sides. V'gam en yochol lahat liyodov be. I don't know what this.
5 sides.
5 sides?
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, that's it has to have a floor. But but it has walls on 4 sides that it can contain.
The pipe does, but it just doesn't have the bottom, and that's
But
why.
if a flat surface, then it has the 4 sides. Unless you count like a table with a river on it. It's not only what they talk about the 4 sides.
It has to be that the water can stagnate there, right?
So the pipe won't because it has only 4 sides. And if another 2 sides broken.
Right. That's exactly what we're saying. Okay. The kodim hachalolim al kalchem mayim min hayar. If you put your hands on it, the lo yavi koach gavo pasal mishum the ein kan kli. There is no kli. The kodim eno klum she'ein lahem beis kibul. The pipe cannot contain any water. The reason why the pipe has water in it is because the water is running through it. It's not contained in the pipe. Okay? V'gam en yochel hatlo yadav be'rer kastin ha'omdim shiva. It's kind of a bucket around there. V'hu shenifsek ha'kiluach min ha'konim. Al ve'esh shahoich ha'kiluach min ha'konim im rotza lahatlo yadav ba'kastin yesh lo v'desha l'kuli ama af sheyesh chokrim the nitzok rochel kazeh l'kuli ama ha'vechiber ha'vekilu matlu ba'yor. If around those pipes you have some kind of a bucket that's holding water, so being that it's attached to the yar, it's like you're putting your hands into the yar. Because of achronim, she'en litol yadav min ha-flumig, lefi she'eno kli. And this is a fascinating thing. I would like to share with you a piece of Jewish history. I have in my house here in Beit Shemesh, I'm not sure if the word is a book or a sefer, that was written around 1920 in America, and it's about making a mikveh in your bathtub in New York City. And the author of that sefer was actually a Lubavitcher rabbi, and he was afraid people were not being makbid on Taras HaMishpacha, so he went to tell you which streets in Manhattan the water piping was never a kli, and the water that came out of your tap would be kosher to make a mikveh in your bathtub. It's a fascinating sefer, and it has a whole bunch of fascinating halachas. It was a very modern, it's a very modern sefer because it discusses all kinds of shilas that are practical shilas, but it all is based on this idea that he had how he's going to be matir so that people should be able to make mikvahs. And it's a fascinating sefer.
The water is flowing naturally from the upstate reservoirs down to New York City.
Right. Now, the average, the pipe, the problem is that when you have a pump, so it goes into a chamber and then something pushes it up, right? And then pushes it forward. That paddle sometimes will have a problem of a kli and sometimes not. And this is, we have this problem of these kinds of chiburim even nowadays with the mikvos that have the filters in them. They're busy with the same kind of shaila. Okay. All the new filters that just came out went through all the rabbis, and some said one way, some said the other. Okay, I'm not going to get involved. Okay. I'll just share with you, on my way here today, I was involved in the question about the chickens that we eat if they're kosher. Okay? Because allegedly the chickens that we eat today, they are shechted after, I think, about 35 days, 39 days. And the amount of food that was given to them to bring them to that weight that they're shechted at is about 1.5 kilos. The chicken that was shechted 40 years ago, it was shechted after 60 days, and they had to give it like 4.5 kilos of food to get it to get the same amount of meat out of it. Okay? And these chickens are much more, financially viable. But to create them, they had to interbreed different minim. And that's a good question. That's part of the question. Officially, it's made out of 2 chickens, one called a rock and one called a Cornish. Cornish, maybe some of you are familiar with Cornish hens. Okay. What? Okay. Okay. And these 2 that they are made out of are not the Cornish hens of the ones that you eat. They're a variation of that, and some of them even have some simone tuma on them. They're not for sure that they're tummy or not, and that it is a major. This about 5 years ago. Maybe, and the problem is that it's very hard to know. The genetic testing that was done on the chickens they have today don't look so positive. We'll just leave it at that. But as far as I know, the Gedolei HaPoskim still said that you could eat the chickens. You don't have to worry about it. There was a letter from you have to just go to the right place to Knesset. For some reason, this shul didn't have that kuntris, okay? Okay. The kuntris is called Habayot Ba'ofot Bizmanenu. Yeah. Okay. And the chicken that we're speaking about is called a pitam chicken. Peites mem. Okay. Anybody wants to do research on it? And there's a letter from Rav Moshe Matkar, from Rabbi Yashiv and Rav Chaim Kaneski, what they ate, how they were misyachas to the shaila, the truth from Moshe Sternbuch. There's a lot of people that this is a real happening shaila. But this is post the broccoli chicken shaila, which was about 7 years ago.
New one?
Yeah, this is a new one. Okay. No, it's not the different one. I'll just tell you, we live in a time that we're further and further away from anything original. The only thing that we have nowadays original is problems. But no, I'll just say the cow that you get milk from would never survive.
Never saw it.
In the wild. Are there wild? Yes, there are wild cows.
In the world today.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. And even the ones that are owned by people that let them roam, they cannot have a cow like the ones that you get milk from, because they can't move. To maximize, they get the. Yeah, I understand. But I will just tell you, in my opinion, that's why we have a lot of diseases and allergies that we didn't used to have. Because when you don't eat well-balanced food, you get a non-well-balanced person. That's, okay. That has to do with it also. Okay, well, okay, we'll stop over here.
Yeah, my